A sound bath is a guided listening experience that uses instruments like singing bowls, gongs, chimes, or resonant tones to immerse the listener in sound. The purpose isn't performance and it isn't entertainment. It's really about regulation. And when we experience steady, layered tones, something really interesting happens in the body. The nervous system begins to slow, your heart rate can decrease, and breathing can deepen. The brain can begin to shift towards calmer states, what researchers often describe as alpha or theta brainwave activity, which are associated with relaxation and restoration. While research into sound therapy is still evolving, what we do know is this: the nervous system responds to sensory input. And when that sensory input is steady, predictable, and calming, it can activate the parasympathetic system, the part that's responsible for rest and restoration. A sound bath isn't mystical and it isn't a curative for trauma. It's simply one tool, one of many to reset an overloaded system. And that's what we're talking about in today's episode. Hello, everyone. My name is John Ebron. I'm a master mindset life coach and certified leadership and behavioral consultant. And I want to welcome you back to Mental Health Check-ins, everyday conversations about mental health at work and beyond. This podcast series exists for one simple reason. Mental health is talked about more openly today than ever before, yet many people still don't know how to talk about it in real time, especially at work. Many people worry about saying the wrong things, jumping to advice giving too quickly, or even avoiding the conversation altogether. So, this series is about closing that gap. We're reframing mental health as a part of everyday human experiences, not just as diagnoses or crises or a clinical label of such. Because mental health shows up long before someone reaches out for an employee assistance program, for example, or to a clinician. It shows up in team meetings, in productivity dips, in withdrawal and irritability, in overworking and just pushing through every day. And today's episode is focusing on something that many people experience but rarely name: being overworked but still functional. So let's talk about being overworked, being overwhelmed versus trauma. Now, we want to make a good distinction between the two. Not every difficult mental health experience is trauma. Now, trauma is a very specific psychological experience that involves events of overwhelm of the nervous system in profound ways. But many people today are experiencing something different. Their systems are overloaded. The difference between overload and overwhelm. We're overloaded with deadlines, constant digital input, family responsibilities, financial pressures, social expectations, information overload. The nervous system is processing more stimulus today than it was designed to manage. So when that happens, what does it look like? Typically, people keep functioning. We go to work, we attend meetings, we answer emails, we meet the responsibilities of the day. And from the outside, everything looks fine. But internally, the system is carrying way too much of a heavy load. And that state is what we might call overwhelmed but functioning. You're still moving, but everything feels heavier than it should. Now, in many instances, when we find ourselves in that state of being, many people will move towards this idea of just pushing through. But let's talk about why pushing through sometimes can backfire. Many high performing people are taught one response: mental toughness, push through, just work harder, just stay focused, just get it done. And sometimes pushing through can work in the short term. But when the nervous system is overloaded, pushing through, working harder, it can actually make things worse. Because overwhelm isn't just a mindset problem, It's a physiological state. Your nervous system shifts into a state of heightened activation when overloaded. So that means the heart rate can increase, muscles stay tense, our breathing becomes shallow. Maybe even our sleep becomes lighter or easily disturbed. And here's something that many people don't realize: stress often shows up physically before it shows up emotionally. Before somebody says, I feel overwhelmed, they may already be experiencing it. Now, what could that look like? Fatigue, headaches, muscle tension, digestive changes, even difficulty concentrating. They're not always there as a sign of weakness. These are signals. This is the body saying the system is carrying too much load. So we want to think about ways of regulating and reducing that overload. So let's talk through a few ways that we can do that. Small supports can make a really big difference. And this is the encouraging news. When overwhelm is about system overload, not trauma, these small supports can really make a powerful impact. You don't always need a massive life change. Often the nervous system responds well to small, steady adjustments. So let's explore a few. First, supporting the nervous system gently. The nervous system responds best to gentle signals of safety. That means slowing down rather than just forcing more productivity. Now, this could include taking a pause between tasks, stepping away from the screen for 2 or 3 minutes, allowing your eyes to focus on something further away, like a window or a tree. These small pauses can help signal to the nervous system that it doesn't have to remain in that state of constant alert. Number two, simplifying your physical space. Now, your environment really affects your mental state more than we realize. A cluttered and chaotic space can increase cognitive load. This is why traditions like feng shui emphasizes the relationship between energy and environment. Now, you don't have to redesign your entire office, but small changes can help. Clearing away unnecessary clutter from the workspace, for example. Maybe letting in some natural light or adding a plant that or some other calming object. Creating a visual scene of openness. When your physical environment feels calmer, your nervous system tends to follow. Our next tip is gentle movement. Now, movement is one of the most powerful ways to discharge stress from the body. But when someone is overwhelmed, intense exercise may feel impossible. That's where gentle movements can really help. Taking a short walk, or maybe just stretching or rolling your shoulders, maybe slow yoga or some other mobility exercise. Again, these small movements can help release that tension stored in the body and restore circulation and oxygen flow. Think of it as resetting the nervous system. Number four, nutrition and hydration. Again, we have to think about the simple self-care strategies that often gets overlooked when we feel overwhelmed, right? So when the system is overloaded, the body needs that steady fuel. Hydration supports cognitive clarity. A balanced meal can stabilize your energy levels. And of course, skipping meals and relying heavily on caffeine and other stimulants can intensify that stress response. So we want to support the body nutritionally. This is one of the most important practical forms of mental health care. Next, we want to talk about calming sensory practices. The nervous system always responds strongly to sensory input, and simple practices involving breathing, sound, rhythm, these can help regulate the body. Slow breathing exercises, listening to calming music, as we started off our session today with, nature sounds, or even just a few moments of silence. These sensory cues signal to the nervous system that it is safe to shift out of that high alert mode. I want to give you one practical reset that you can use anywhere, anytime. It's called the 5-4-3-2-1 sensory reset. Now, when you feel overwhelmed, pause, look around you, Name 5 things you can see. Then notice 4 things you can physically feel. Your feet in your shoes, for example, your back against your chair, your hands resting. Then name 3 things you can hear. Distant sounds count. Then 2 things you can smell, or simply 2 scents that you enjoy. Finally, 1 thing that you can taste, even if it's just the taste of your own breath. What this does is simple but powerful. It anchors you in the present moment. It activates multiple sensory pathways and it shifts attention away from the rumination and back into the body. Overwhelm often lives in anticipation. What might happen? What could go wrong? Regulation lives in the present. And finally, we want to talk about small, predictable structures, the way that you structure your life. When everything feels chaotic, predictable routines can really restore that stability. So we're not talking about rigid schedules, but small anchors in the day. So, for example, a constant morning routine. Again, a short walk after lunch, a quiet moment before starting work. These routines can create a sense of rhythm that helps the nervous system settle. Again, predictability. This is what we're looking for. Predictability reduces cognitive strain. And one of the most important takeaways from today's conversation is this: some struggles are signals, they're not failures. If you're overwhelmed but functioning, if everything feels harder than it used to be, or if the body feels tense and tired, even when you're trying your best, it doesn't necessarily mean that something is wrong with you. It may simply mean that the system is carrying more load than it is designed for. And when you listen to those signals rather than ignore them, you give yourself the opportunity to restore the balance. So, as we close out this episode of Mental Health Check Ins, everyday conversations about mental health at work and beyond, I really want to thank you for the opportunity to share some of this content with you today. Sometimes the most powerful mental health strategies are the simplest ones. So, supporting your nervous system, creating those small moments of calm, and recognizing that overwhelm is often a signal, not a failure. It can really take you further in your mental health journey.